Hello everyone, old and new friends. This is as well my 5th year in this Vatican Youth Symposium. And I think that this place has literally seen me grow for 5 years. And not only me, but it has seen the project that I preside, the NGO that I preside, Sintrata, grow as well. In this place, we've heard the stories of so many victims and survivors, and their voice has to be one of the first ones that needs to be heard. And here I've had amazing friendships and incredible teachers and mentors like Monsignor Sanchez Orondo. And I just want to trace back a little bit in some of the progress we've had over the years. On the first year that I was here, I spoke of how when I was 17 years old, I met a survivor of human trafficking that led me to start a student movement that started spreading throughout universities in Mexico. Later on, we were gathering some of the best minds and talents of our generation to actually create solutions against human trafficking. I remember Pope Francis giving a speech right there, giving us really encouraging words about how we have to kept on giving purpose to all of our work together. On the second year, I talked about, on the first year also, I spoke about access to justice and social reintegration of survivors. And today I can say that we have successfully helped more than 200 survivors actually be reintegrated to society. And saying that is just really big words. It's just a lot of work behind that. We collaborate with 3 shelters now in Mexico, and we are an example as a country of the work that has been done in social reintegration. The second year I spoke about prevention because I spoke about the story of a survivor that's called Ana that was exploited through a very important newspaper in Mexico and how she was sold in the adult section by her own stepsister. And we talked about the importance of preventive initiatives and going into vulnerable communities to actually give tools for families, tools for teachers, and tools for communities that were living in really critical situations because of poverty and many other reasons. I can say today that we have launched a digital campaign through cinema, and that with our presential programs, we're reaching more than 75,000 children all the time. On the third year, I was coming back from an experience in India that actually changed my perspective on how we could do the social. And I remember being really radical on capacity creating. And afterwards, I realized that that year was the year in which the SDSN youth joined up into the symposium, and Professor Sachs and Sam and just this wonderful team of the SDSN youth just helped us develop so many tools that we could use to address some of the problems that we were facing. On the fourth year, we came here not with the stories of survivors only, but with the stories of their victimizers. And the point that we wanted to make is that crime is something that grows in society. It's a process in which people develop either positive capacity or negative capacity. This conversation has continued to grow in my mind, and I realized that capacity could be built not only in individuals, but in complete societies. So I want to share today one big success that we've had in Mexico, and this is that there had been this really important network that was happening through an online platform called Zona Divas. This platform offered VIP escort services, but what people didn't know is that many of these services were offered by women that were coming from Central and South America, and that they were being enslaved. So we have this story that we've been just growing larger and larger in the conversation because she's called Ana, no? She's from Venezuela. Venezuela enters, as we know, a very critical political economic situation, so she becomes very vulnerable. Someone offers her a job so that she can exit this situation. She takes it, she leaves her mom and her son, and she was given instructions that when she was going to go through migration, she had to repeat the script and give a false testimony of what she was going to be doing in Mexico. She was told that she was going to be selling clothes. She goes through migration with lies, and when she arrives, she's taken into this apartment in Puebla, an important city in Mexico, and she's told, well, you have a debt. This is the amount of your debt, and also you enter the country with lies, so you have a problem with migration. They take advantage of the fact that she doesn't know that her authorities or her embassy might avail her with solutions, and they start exploiting her sexually, and they tell her, from the debt you have, you're gonna work in the VIP escort platform, from which you're gonna be charged the fee that will sum up into your whole debt, and then from that, we're gonna take your professional photos for this platform, and we're also gonna charge you for that. And it's all gonna end up into an infinite debt that she's not gonna be able to pay. This made us realize that human trafficking in the context of cities, it's actually just growing so much, and it's going by invisible, and it's doing really hard to tackle it because traffickers now are using new technologies to be able to exploit without leaving any traces, and it's gonna be really hard to go after them. And in the past years, we've focused so much on government in getting involved in these issues, and we realized that we also were missing a huge part of this community that could actually have a true impact on what we were doing, which was the private sector. So what we've developed today is like a mechanism of cooperation, where you have the public, the private, and the citizen. What we're doing is that we're targeting businesses that will have citizens that are in this key position to actually identify cases and interrupt the story of human trafficking by safe complaint channels and mechanisms. And with this, I'd like to really proudly announce to you that we've had amazing partnerships being built up on the course of this year. One of them is Uber. So with Uber, we're working to actually create capacities for identification and channeling of victims, of potential victims throughout the city. This means that we have more than 15,000 eyes everywhere, eyes in the whole of the city. And that by creating this capacity, we're actually having an impact on real complaint numbers and real operatives that are being built. What we tell people is not only that the Uber driver maybe will have eyes everywhere to be able to identify victims, but there are also other private organizations that can help. And I'm meaning the travel and the tourism industry, because victims are being moved around and exploited in those facilities, and they also have to take commitments, which is why we've also celebrated a partnership with the San Reyes from the Marriott chain of hotels, and our aim, our goal, is to actually create safety areas in cities. We want to make our cities safer, and we need to have a perfect partnership, a perfect triangle between the authorities that need to be trained to be able to react properly to the complaints, between the private that need to have protocols and concrete compromises against human trafficking, and citizens that are going to be the channels in which all of these reports are going to be concentrated. And I would love for someone to ask me in the end how we're doing this whole mechanism for complaint and reports. And something that I would like to add to this is that while doing this, we're kind of tackling the 3 Ps that are appointed by the UN to fight against human trafficking, which is prevention, protection, and prosecution. We're building this nice circle around the whole issue and just creating mechanisms for cities to be safer and safer. Perhaps in the next years to come, I don't know if we'll be able to say that we ended modern slavery. I'm sure that it won't be the case, sadly. However, I do think that we can start by complicating the logistics. Mexico is known, especially the whole touristic section, to be a paradise for the exploitation of minors, boys and girls. And we realize that this happens because it's so easy for it to happen. And if we complicate these logistics, we might get close to actually ending this. And as Nadia Murad said, the Nobel Peace Prize this year, who was a survivor of genocide and a survivor of sex trade and exploitation by ISIS, she has this book that says, The Last Girl. I think we will get closer to making it so hard that we will be the ones to say that we're seeing the last generations of modern slavery taking place in our hometowns, in our cities, and in our countries. And we won't stop until we make it hard enough for it to actually start diminishing in a significant way. Thank you so much for the invitation. Thank you so much for your attention.